We have some pretty good news out of a company called Windsurf. Now, this is something that makes me pretty happy. I feel like the company's employees got kind of shafted recently in the acquisition by Google. And so it looks like as of today, they've been acquired by a different company and all will be made right. I want to break it down today on the podcast as I think this is I mean, if you're in tech, this feels like a heartwarming story. But also, I think this is really interesting because this is kind of where we can expect to see the whole industry going in the future with these sort of aqua hire deals and all of this new stuff that's happening in the industry that hasn't traditionally happened in the past. Okay, so what's going on? The company Cognition, which is the maker of the AI coding agent Jaeden, which has its own drama that I think is interesting, I'll bring up, has officially acquired Windsurf. And so all the employees that didn't get pulled over into the recent Google acquihire of their CEO are going to be moving over to Cognition, which is fantastic for a lot of different reasons. Before we get into this, I wanted to mention if you've ever wanted to try the top 40 AI models all without having to pay $20 subscriptions to everything, I'd love for you to check out my platform, which is called AIbox.ai. It essentially has a chat like ChatGPT interface where you can talk to all of the top models, including image and audio models, all in the same chat. So you can talk to ChatGPT to get a response for something, and then if you want the tone to be better, you can switch it to Claude, and then if you want it to create an audio file, you can switch to 11 Labs and have it do that. So all within the same chat, you can get access to all of these top models for $20 a month. So it saves you having to get subscriptions to everything, one platform. It also saves all of your files. If you're creating images or audio in one folder, you have a media storage folder. So everything you create from every platform can be saved there. You can delete it, manage it, move it, save it, download it, all from one place without having to download and log into all of your different accounts. In any case, I hope this is something that saves you a lot of time. It's currently in beta. Go check it out and let me know if you have any feedback or features you'd like to add. We're working on developing it all the time. All right, let's get into what's going on with Cognition. So Windsurf, people were initially kind of giving the CEO of Windsurf a lot of flack. So they had this $3 billion deal lined up with OpenAI, allegedly, where OpenAI was looking at buying Windsurf. The deal fell through. I think part of that is due to the fact that OpenAI got in a little bit of a pinch financially where they were trying to convert to a for-profit company, and then Microsoft, and they were also simultaneously trying to get out of this Microsoft deal where they have to give Microsoft, like their portions of their revenue and all of these and stuff until they achieve AGI. Like they had this whole Microsoft deal. They're trying to backtrack out of the Microsoft deal, but at the same time, they're trying to switch to a for-profit. And so they need Microsoft to approve that because Microsoft got like 50% of the company when they invested $10 billion at the beginning of the whole AI explosion. What happens is Microsoft does not want them to back out of the deal. They're super happy to sit there and collect royalties and own a big chunk of OpenAI and integrate this into everything they're doing, and they're getting a lot of benefits. So they're like, no, we don't want to do that. So Microsoft's not going to sign off on their conversion to a for-profit. The reason they wanted to convert to a for-profit is so that SoftBank could put like a massive multi-deca billion-dollar injection of cash into the company. So that injection of cash is now on hold, and without that cash, they're not, looking as eager to go and make $3 billion investments into acquiring different companies like Windsurf. So Windsurf's deal kind of got put on ice, which left Windsurf, it feels like it left them scrambling a bit because I feel like they could have found a great company to acquire them. But what ended up happening was Google swooped in for $2.5 billion, which honestly, $2.5 billion, $3 billion, what's the difference these days, right? They come in with $2.5 billion, but in classic big tech, where no one wants to go and try to acquire a company and then possibly get it, halted by the FTC or whatever. I mean, we used to have this issue in the Biden administration with Lena Khan, over the FTC, where she was halting companies like the Figma Adobe merger or acquisition and, dragging it out, and it really hurt Figma. And then Figma's now trying to do like an IPO, and there's like all this kind of drama and many other companies. I guess it was probably actually a UK watch group that stopped that specific Figma merger. But in any case, in the United States, it feels like right now the mergers and acquisitions isn't, the FTC isn't stopping these things or wouldn't, presumably. The administration, says that that's not one of their objectives, and they doesn't seem like they want to police that too much right now. But you still see like foreign, like in the EU, watchdog groups and other organizations there halting some of these things. And I believe that was the Figma Adobe issue. And so it seems like these big companies don't even want to get involved. They don't even want to mess with these acquisitions anymore. They're not going to acquire a small company. They're going to aqua hire the company. So the same way that Microsoft grabbed Inflection, the same way so many of these other companies have been playing out. You essentially go and acquire all the top talent. So the CEO, all the executive team, some of this top talent that essentially helped build this big company. And maybe you license the IP. So in the case of Google with Windsurf, they got the top talent, but they also got a license to all of the Windsurf like technology, aka they get rip the code. They pretty much get to steal it. I mean, not steal it. They're paying billions for it, but that's kind of the deal. But they don't want to acquire the company because an acquisition can get blocked. Hiring employees, anyone can hire anyone, and licensing deals, anyone can license anything. And so essentially they acquired it, but they actually said, look, we're just taking the IP, we're taking the executive team, we're leaving the company to run independently. Same thing that happened with Inflection, with Inflection's Pi model as well. Microsoft said, look, we're leaving that to run its own independent company, but we're taking the executives. Now, what does that mean? That means the executives are compensated very well when they're moved over in this multi-billion-dollar deal. But a lot of the 250 employees that were at Windsurf got nothing. They're stuck at the old company. Their executive team that had the vision's gone, and they're like, yep, you can just, keep running the company, enjoy. Now, to be fair, I don't think, you can cry too much for them. They had $82 million in annual recurring revenue, Windsurf had. So, like, the company is doing quite well with, almost $100 million in annual recurring revenues. The employees are going to be well compensated. I'm not like too concerned about it if I'm being 100% honest. But a lot of people do feel like this is kind of rotten because all the employees that worked there, they had these vesting schedules, they had shares and equity and stuff, and nobody got anything from this big multi-billion-dollar deal that, originally was kind of running the company. So that changed when Cognition came in and talked to the Varun Mohan, who is currently, Varun Mohan was the CEO that got hired by Google, so he's gone. But they had Jeff Wang, who's formerly their head of business. Now he's made the interim CEO, right? So they're probably gonna look for a new CEO. But in the meantime, their head of business, Jeff Wang, is taking over at Windsurf, which kind of is a bummer because it means he didn't make the cut as being essential to Google and get pulled over into that multi-billion-dollar acqui-hire deal. But in any case, he obviously was shopping around. He talked to the Cognition team and made a deal. This is what he said on it specifically. He said, quote, "The last 72 hours have been the wildest roller coaster ride of my career. To our new teammates at Cognition, as we at Windsurf feel incredibly lucky to be joining a team that shares our vision, our deep commitment to our users, and most importantly, our values." So pretty quickly after the leadership team and everyone got acquired, he went and found, within the week, basically, someone to acquire the entire company. Their whole team is moving over to Cognition. This is kind of interesting. For those that remember, Cognition came out with a tool called Jaeden, which when it came out, they were like, Jaeden is replacing software engineers. It's essentially like an AI agent code, co-worker. It can go and accomplish a lot of tasks. I've actually heard recently some companies, I believe it was like Wells Fargo or one of those other big banks. It wasn't Wells Fargo, but something like that. Maybe Goldman Sachs. But they're essentially using Jaeden and their agents to do a bunch of stuff autonomously inside of their organization with coding and development. So it's a cool tool, but I remember when it first came out, a lot of people tried it and said basically it was a bunch of hype. It wasn't actually able to go and accurately autonomously do a bunch of stuff. I think in their demo video, if I'm remembering correctly, like they showed off it doing a bunch of stuff which wasn't actually capable of doing. They showed it having an IDE, which it didn't actually have. So in any case, I mean, drama aside, and this is maybe like a year ago, so I'm sure they've developed whatever they were working on back then, and I'm sure their company's doing great now since it sounds like they're making some big deals. But Cognition isn't a company without controversy either, right? So, but I think this is the interesting thing about Jaeden is it did go super viral, and in going super viral, they were able to raise a lot of money. So I feel like sometimes we see these companies that are able to raise a lot of money for whatever reason are then able to use that money and go acquire companies that might have a lot of product. So anyways, it's interesting. And we now have Windsurf joining the Cognition team. You can see how these two companies can obviously play to each other's strengths. Windsurf is a, really prolific company for coders to use to help them in coding, similar to Cursor or or to Anthropic's Claude Code. So anyways, very, very interesting. When they're doing this, they're actually acquiring all of Windsurf's IP and their products. So that's its AI-powered integrated development environment alongside all of their employees who weren't hired at Google. And of course, they're going to be pulling in this $82 million in annual recurring revenue. So how much are they acquiring them for? Probably a decent chunk if they're also inheriting like they're getting $100 million in annual recurring revenue. What's that worth? Sometimes that's at a 7x multiple. So it could be, it could be pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's not Google buying them, but you could imagine it could be quite a bit of money. Then the question is, what percentage of that is stock? What percentage of that is cash? I'd imagine a lot of that would be stock. So if that's the case, they're probably giving, but they're acquiring with a bunch of stock, which they're then actually getting annual recurring revenue. So all in all, should be pretty interesting. Cognition also said that Windsurf's user base had at least 350 enterprise customers and hundreds of thousands of daily active users. So tons of usage. This is going to be good for both of the companies. Windsurf's team, while they're there, is going to focus on building out Jaeden. So they have a great team, and they're like, all right, guys, now time to work on our product, Jaeden, which is their AI coding agent. Eventually, they said that they're going to integrate Windsurf's IP and capabilities into all of their products. So it doesn't seem like it's the top priority. Top priority is grabbing that team, getting them to work on their tool. Meanwhile, they're also getting recurring revenue from Windsurf. I think this is fantastic. It was actually the information that initially reported that Windsurf employees that joined in the last year were not receiving any sort of payout from Google's billion-dollar reverse aqua hire. But Cognition said in their blog post they put out that all Windsurf employees are going to participate financially in the deal and have vesting cliffs waived for their work to date. Meaning, if you've worked at Windsurf for a year, your vesting period, which is usually like a 4-year vesting schedule, that first year that you worked at Windsurf will be annulled and it'll kind of count, which is very nice. So this is very interesting. I'm honestly super happy to see this outcome for the team over at Windsurf. A lot of people were kind of feeling bad for them with what happened with their founders and the Google deal and how that went down. Is it just, Google say, is it the founders not wanting to share the money? Is it just the way the environment is because you can't do acquisitions? I don't know. It's definitely a tricky time, but overall, very, very interesting. And again, if you want to try out all of these AI models that we always talk about on the show, go check out aibox.ai, my platform where you can try all the top models for $19.99 a month. So thanks so much for tuning into the podcast. Make sure to leave a rating and review if you enjoyed the episode or if you learned anything new. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next episode.